Hello everyone. This is Six Path Weeb, and I welcome each one of you to my YouTube channel. On this channel, we explore unique and exciting alternate stories from the anime world, where familiar characters take unexpected paths and the shinobi world changes in ways we've never seen before. Today's fanfiction topic is: what if Naruko became Orochimaru's ally after Sasuke died? Part 2. Before we begin, a quick disclaimer. The content on this channel is created purely for entertainment and discussion purposes. I do not own any of the anime footage used in my videos. All rights and credits belong to their respective creators and copyright holders. With that said, let's dive into the story. A soft gust of wind drifted through the single open window, gently ruffling the bright blonde hair of a young girl sitting nearby. The girl was Uzumaki Naruko. 2.5 years had passed since she began traveling and learning under Guren's guidance. Naruko now wore a loose orange kimono top with wide sleeves that reached just past her fingertips. The fabric was tucked neatly into navy blue pants that were wrapped with bandages at the ankles. A rope belt of the same color rested around her waist, tied in an elegant loop. Blue shinobi sandals completed her outfit. Over the years, Naruko had grown taller and more composed. Yet the biggest change was not her clothing or height, it was her eyes. Long ago, her eyes had been bright blue and open, full of simple excitement. Now they held a quiet depth, like a calm night sky with a faint spark of light hidden within. Anyone who looked closely could see that Naruko carried many thoughts and memories inside her. Standing beside her was her teammate, Suigetsu. The white-haired teenager folded his arms with a slightly impatient expression. "Come on," he said, stretching his shoulders. "This might be our only chance for a long time." Across the room, Orochimaru sighed thoughtfully and brushed a strand of hair away from his face. "Suigetsu," he replied calmly, "you already know the answer, yet you continue to argue." "Please, Orochimaru-sama," Suigetsu insisted. "We're already close to the eastern side of Fire Country. Opportunities like this don't come often." Orochimaru turned toward Naruko with a curious smile. "What do you think, Naruko? You've visited Wave Country before. Do you believe the journey will be difficult?" Naruko paused for a moment, thinking carefully before speaking. "If someone traveled alone, it might be tricky," she said. "There are many patrol routes along the way. But if we travel together and stay alert, we should be able to avoid trouble." Suigetsu brightened immediately. "So you'll come along?" he asked. Naruko nodded with a small, confident smile. "Yes. I'll go with you." Orochimaru watched them for a moment, clearly amused by their determination. "Very well," he said. "I trust your judgment, Naruko. While you are traveling, I may have another small task for you. Send a messenger snake when you reach your destination." Both teenagers nodded respectfully before leaving the room. The two teammates moved quickly through the forest paths of Fire Country. Leaves rustled overhead as sunlight filtered through the branches, painting bright patterns across the ground. For a while, they traveled quietly, enjoying the peaceful sounds of the forest. Suigetsu yawned and glanced around. "So this is Fire Country," he said. "There are forests everywhere. It almost feels like an endless green ocean." Naruko smiled faintly. "It's always been like this," she replied. As they continued their journey, memories drifted through her mind like quiet clouds. She remembered her first trip to Wave Country many years ago. Back then, everything had felt new and exciting. Naruko wondered what her old teammates might be doing now. "I hope everyone is doing well," she murmured softly to herself. Far away in the Hidden Leaf Village, Sakura sat at a familiar ramen stand. With a cheerful smile, she snapped apart her chopsticks. "Thank you, Tucci," she said politely. The elderly ramen chef chuckled kindly. "Sakura, you've been coming here for years," he replied. "You're practically family now." Sakura laughed and began enjoying her meal. The warm broth and noodles were comforting, especially after a long day of training. As she ate, she found herself thinking about the past, about her old team and the many adventures they once shared. The sound of the restaurant curtains moving caught her attention. "This is ridiculous, Choji," a familiar voice said. "Why did we come here? Ramen isn't exactly the healthiest dinner." Sakura's eyes brightened. "Ino. Choji," she called happily. "It's been so long." Ino quickly took a seat beside her friend, smiling widely. "Sakura. I was hoping we'd run into you." Choji sat nearby and began looking through the menu with excitement. "You know," he said, "this place really does have the best noodles." Moments later, another familiar figure appeared, struggling to carry two very large bags. Troublesome. Shikamaru muttered as he placed them on the ground. Sakura blinked in surprise. Why are you carrying all of that? Choji grinned. Ino made him do it after he lost a bet. Shikamaru leaned back in his chair with a tired sigh. We were guessing who would get promoted to Jonin, he explained. Turns out I was offered the position. But I turned it down. Ino immediately crossed her arms. Can you believe that? She said. He actually refused it. Shikamaru shrugged. I figured staying at Chunin meant fewer responsibilities. More time to relax. Sakura laughed softly. Only you would think that way. Choji nodded as he enjoyed his meal. Well, someone else from our class did accept a promotion. Sakura tilted her head curiously. Really? Who? Hinata, Shikamaru replied. She's now a special Jonin. Sakura's face lit up with pride. That's wonderful. She's worked so hard. The group chatted happily, sharing stories and laughter. For a moment, Sakura grew quiet as she looked down at her bowl of ramen. Then she smiled again, warm, determined, and hopeful. One day, she said gently, I'm going to find Naruko and bring her home. And when that happens, our whole team will be together again. The Great Naruto Bridge? Suigetsu whistled in amazement as he stared at the long, shining bridge stretching across the water. He turned to his teammate with wide eyes. How did you get a bridge named after you? And one that is so enormous? Naruko smiled, a little shy but proud at the same time, and began walking across the bridge. The wind carried the fresh scent of the ocean, and the water sparkled beneath the sunlight. My first C-rank mission was to escort a bridge builder back here, she explained. His name was Tazuna. The mission turned out to be much more important than anyone expected. I guess the town felt grateful and decided to name the bridge after me. Suigetsu hurried after her, hands behind his head as he laughed softly. You don't exactly seem like the inspirational type. Naruko shrugged with a playful grin. What can I say? I was young. Hey! You two there! A voice called from farther ahead. Suigetsu looked up and saw two tall figures standing near the middle of the bridge. They wore armor that looked like it belonged to samurai. I didn't know Wave had samurai, Suigetsu whispered to Naruko. They don't, Naruko quietly replied. The two guards stepped forward, examining the travelers with curious expressions. Who are you? One of them asked. Naruko folded her arms politely. We're just visiting relatives in Nami. Their names are Tazuna, Inari, and Tsunami. The guards exchanged glances. The first one said thoughtfully. You seem rather skilled for ordinary visitors. Naruko chuckled nervously and rubbed the back of her head. Well, I do a bit of traveling. Suigetsu leaned closer and whispered, they're pretty suspicious. Naruko stepped forward with a friendly smile. Look, we really are just here to visit friends. The bridge means a lot to me, so I wanted to see it again. The guard studied her for a moment. Then one of them relaxed and nodded. Well, visitors are welcome in Wave, he said. We just have to be careful about strangers sometimes. That's understandable, Naruko replied warmly. The guard stepped aside, allowing them to pass. As Naruko and Suigetsu continued walking across the bridge, Suigetsu laughed. See? No problems at all. Naruko grinned. Being polite usually works better than causing trouble. Soon the enormous bridge stretched behind them as they reached the other side. So how far is Zabuza-senpai's grave? Suigetsu asked, looking around curiously. About a mile from here, Naruko answered. They walked along a quiet path surrounded by tall grass and gentle ocean breezes until they reached a small clearing. In the center stood a simple grave, peaceful and carefully maintained. Suigetsu examined it with interest. Wow! It's really here. Naruko nodded respectfully. A lot happened here a long time ago. But everyone learned important lessons. Suigetsu looked around the area. Wasn't there supposed to be a famous sword here too? Naruko frowned slightly as she noticed footprints in the soil nearby. Looks like someone visited recently, she said. Just then, the sound of quick footsteps approached from down the path. Naruko-ne-san? Naruko turned toward the voice, and her expression immediately brightened. Running toward them was a young boy with a big smile. Inari, Naruko said happily. It's been a long time. A girl about 12 years old stepped into the quiet forest clearing. She was covered in dust and a little sweat from traveling, and her bright blonde hair stuck out in every direction. She wore a simple green t-shirt and khaki shorts, but her cheerful blue eyes made her easy to recognize. A small boy standing nearby blinked in surprise. Is that really you? Naruko smiled warmly. Inari. It's been a while. I can't believe you're actually back, Inari said with a wide grin. Then he glanced curiously at the tall boy standing beside her, who had pale hair and a slightly mischievous smile. Who's the strange-looking guy? Suigetsu crossed his arms and raised an eyebrow. Strange-looking? That's not very polite. Naruko sighed gently and shook her head. He means you look unusual, Suigetsu. Don't tease him. Suigetsu gave Inari a playful grin, showing a row of sharp teeth that made the boy step back a little. Relax, Suigetsu said. I'm just visiting with Naruko. Naruko stepped forward kindly. Inari, we're looking for something important. Do you happen to know where the Kubi Kiribocho sword is? Inari scratched the back of his head nervously. I'm not sure what that is. Naruko tilted her head thoughtfully. She had trained for many years, and she was very good at noticing when someone was feeling nervous. Inari, she said gently, it's okay. If you know something, you can tell me. The boy looked down at the ground, fidgeting with his hands. Suigetsu leaned against a tree and watched quietly. Looks like he's thinking really hard. After a moment, Inari spoke in a small voice. Kazanaji took a big sword earlier. He said some people needed it, and that I shouldn't talk about it. Naruko nodded with understanding. Thank you for telling me. You were trying to keep your promise, weren't you? Inari looked relieved. Yeah. You did the right thing, Naruko said kindly. Promises are important. The long day of running around finally caught up with the boy, and he swayed a little. Whoa there, Naruko said, gently steadying him. Looks like you're tired. Suigetsu chuckled. He's been running around all day, hasn't he? Naruko carefully lifted the sleepy boy onto her back. Let's take him home. You're always helping people, Suigetsu said as they started walking. You're way too nice sometimes. Naruko glanced back with a playful smile. Helping people isn't a bad thing, you know. I didn't say it was, Suigetsu replied with a shrug. At a cozy house near the shore, Tsunami finished placing bowls on the dinner table. She looked out the window and sighed softly. Inari is late again. Kazuna leaned back in his chair, rubbing his beard thoughtfully. That boy probably found another adventure somewhere. I hope he's all right, Tsunami said. Just then, there was a knock at the door. Maybe that's him, Tsunami said hopefully as she hurried toward the kitchen. Kazuna walked to the door and opened it slowly. Standing outside were Naruko and Suigetsu. Naruko smiled brightly while holding the sleepy Inari on her back. Good evening, she said politely. We found someone who looked like he needed to get home. Tsunami rushed forward with relief. Inari. Suigetsu grinned and waved casually. Don't worry. Your kid just needed a ride. Naruko gently helped Inari down and smiled at the family. It's nice to see everyone again, she said warmly. And just like that, the house that had been quiet and worried moments before filled with laughter and cheerful voices once more. A loud crash echoed through the house as Tsunami rushed out of the kitchen and into the living room. She gasped as she saw an intimidating-looking girl step in and begin to converse with her father. What do you think you're doing, punk? Do you know how much that door cost me? Kazuna shouted, flinging a bottle of sake through the air with surprising force. A dry chuckle escaped Suigetsu's lips as he lazily caught the bottle, took a swig, and grinned at the elder man. I think I might like you, old man. Tsunami let out a horror-stricken cry as a blonde-haired girl appeared in the doorway, an unconscious Inari resting gently on her shoulder. What did you do to my son? He's just taking a little nap. Don't worry, Naruko explained as she carefully set the boy on the nearby couch. Kazuna's eyes widened in recognition. Naruko? Is that really you? Yes. It's good to see you again, Kazuna, Naruko replied warmly. I'd like to say the same, Kazuna said, eyeing her suspiciously, but you did break down my door. That was Suigetsu. He gets impatient when people don't answer, especially if he knows someone is home, Naruko explained calmly. Oh, well, it should be fine. I won't mind, as long as you guys pay for the damage and maybe donate a little for the inconvenience, Kazuna said with a sagely nod. Listen here, you old goat. Suigetsu, Naruko interrupted gently, I'll handle this. She wasn't asking. Kazuna, do you happen to know where the large Zanbato that was buried with Zabuza went? Kazuna looked at her suspiciously. Yeah. I handed it over to some Kiri nin who said it was rightfully theirs. Why? Suigetsu's eyes narrowed. Which way did they go? Tazuna stammered, pointing southwest. That way. Before he had even finished his sentence, Suigetsu had vanished. Tazuna turned to Naruko, bewildered. What was that all about? Naruko shook her head and met Tazuna's eyes kindly. I'm sorry for the inconvenience, but I can't have you remembering this. With a gentle flick of her fingers, the Sharingan shimmered, and the two residents slumped safely to the ground, sound asleep. Naruko sighed, glancing at Suigetsu as she took off after her partner. Far away, two shinobi moved gracefully through the sparse forests of Wave Country. Their attire and headbands revealed they were from the Land of Water. One appeared to be in her late teens, with short blue hair, dark eyes hidden behind square glasses that doubled as earmuffs. The rays of sunlight glinted off her jagged teeth. Most striking of all was the enormous, bandaged sword strapped to her back. Damn it, Chojuro, the elder companion huffed, trying to keep pace. Her pointed blue hair peeked from beneath the battle kimono. She had an eye patch over her right eye and carried the legendary Kubi Kiribocho, struggling slightly with its weight. How do you carry such a giant sword everywhere? The younger girl blushed. You get used to it. But I'm still not very good at carrying Hiramkare. Zabuza and Kisame Senpai made it look easy. Chojuro rolled her visible eye. Will you just take a compliment? You're supposed to be one of the 7 swordsmen. Ano, I'm sorry, Ao, the younger one murmured. Don't apologize, grow a backbone, Ao scolded as they continued through the trees. A sudden tingle ran down Ao's spine. With a hand gesture and a whisper, he activated his Byakugan. Veins around his eye bulged as he scanned the area. Their eyes met, a silent understanding passing between the two Kiri nin. They split, flinging themselves in opposite directions, just as a sudden gust of wind snapped a branch above them. What? What was that? Chojuro called, landing softly on the ground. Ao spun, shuriken in hand, as a white-haired shinobi appeared, katana drawn. A blonde-haired girl landed beside her. Well, if it isn't Chojuro of the Mist, the white-haired girl grinned. Who are you? How do you know me? Chojuro asked nervously, instinctively moving toward her blade. The purple-clad ninja laughed. Don't you recognize Mangetsu's little sister? Chojuro's eyes widened in recognition. Suigetsu? I thought you were gone. Not quite. It's good to see you too, but we'll be taking those swords off your hands, Suigetsu said, sliding her katana into its sheath. Ao stepped forward confidently. Really now? You're just a couple of kids. What can you do against a Jonin of Kiri and one of the 7 swordsmen? Naruko smiled and extended her arm. Sin Ayashu. A group of colorful, gentle snakes emerged, swirling harmlessly around her. Ao's eyes widened, but he skillfully dodged and dispersed them with precise movements. Snake summoning? You wouldn't happen to be Orochimaru of the Sannin, would you? Ao asked cautiously. No, my name is Uzumaki Naruko, she said, cracking her neck with determination. Ao's eyes narrowed in recognition. I've heard of you. You're the one who defeated Momochi Zabuza. Naruko tilted her head. And if I am? Before Ao could react, Naruko flipped backward gracefully, narrowly avoiding a sweeping attack. The forest seemed alive with energy as her dull, determined eyes met Chojuro's. A playful, yet serious grin spread across her face. This is going to be fun. If I'm not mistaken, this will be your very first mission as a Jonin commander, won't it? Tsunade asked with a confident smile. Hinata simply nodded. Good. You will be leading a team consisting of 3 Chunin of your choice, preferably those you are well acquainted with. I understand. What is the objective of the mission? Hinata asked, thoughtfully reviewing the profiles of the Chunin in her mind. You will be escorting a wagon full of chakra armor, Tsunade explained. Thanks to our recent trade agreements with the Land of Snow, they have agreed to send us some of their newest models. These armors are very special, they can help protect people and make missions much safer. I trust you know how important this is. Of course. I won't disappoint you, Hokage-sama, Hinata said, her eyes shining with determination. In a quiet, dim room far away, a pale figure studied a scroll with intense curiosity. A small, clever snake slithered nearby, tilting its head as it listened. When Naruko comes along, she will escort a special shipment from Snow Country, the figure whispered, though there was no harm intended, only a tricky plan to see how Naruko would manage a challenging mission. Understood, the snake replied politely. Meanwhile, Naruko crouched in the forest, her golden hair gleaming in the morning sun. She smiled as she faced her friendly rival Ao, who had a playful glint in his eye. "You remind me of someone I knew when I was younger," Naruko said, tilting her head curiously. Ao laughed softly, circling her carefully. "You're very fast. I bet this mission is going to be exciting." Naruko's smile grew. "Well, I always try to be quick. Let's see what you've got." With a flash of light, Naruko performed a series of swift, elegant movements, weaving around Ao with skillful flips and jumps. Ao mirrored her actions, both of them laughing as they practiced a series of playful, harmless sparring techniques. Naruko's hands moved in a flurry of seals, creating shimmering wind orbs that floated in the air like sparkling bubbles. Ao dodged and jumped, marveling at the colors and speed of Naruko's creations. "You're amazing, Naruko," Ao exclaimed as a tiny wind orb spun around his arm. "I've never seen anyone control chakra like that before." Naruko giggled, spinning in mid-air. "Thank you. I learned from the best, of course. But now it's time to see if we can get this mission finished before lunchtime." The two continued their friendly contest, learning from each other's skills while ensuring the special wagon of chakra armor stayed safe. By the end of the morning, the sun was shining brightly over the forest, the armor securely delivered, and Naruko's team cheering. Everyone was safe, happy, and inspired by the teamwork and creativity of their young Jonin commander. "Well done, Naruko," Hinata said proudly, as the young girl beamed. "You truly are ready for the responsibilities of a Jonin." "And we all got stronger today," Naruko added, looking at her friends. "Not just from fighting, but from working together and having fun." And with that, the team returned to the village, hearts full of laughter and adventure, ready for the next mission that awaited them. With Suigetsu and Chojuro. Chojuro let out a long breath as sheathed her Ramkare against the ground and pushed himself back to his feet. His arms trembled slightly from the effort, but his eyes still searched the treetops with careful attention. "That technique really is powerful," Chojuro said, speaking more to himself than anyone else. "If I hadn't used her Ramkare to guard, I might have been knocked right off my feet." A soft rustle in the branches made him turn just in time. Suigetsu dropped lightly from a tree limb, his white hair catching the sunlight as he landed. Suigetsu crossed his arms and gave a lazy grin. "You're pretty careful, Chojuro. That's not a bad thing." Chojuro adjusted his grip on the wide handle of her Ramkare. The sword was enormous, and even though he had trained with it for years, it still felt like guiding a very determined mountain. "Ready for another round?" Suigetsu asked. Chojuro nodded. The two shinobi stepped forward at the same moment. Their swords met with a bright ringing sound, the blades sliding past one another as they moved in a fast but controlled rhythm. Leaves fluttered down from the trees as the pair practiced their sword forms. Suigetsu's katana moved quickly, tracing smooth arcs through the air. Chojuro carefully lifted her Ramkare to block and redirect each strike. Though the blade was large, he had learned how to guide it with steady patience. After a moment, Suigetsu hopped backward and tilted his head. "You know," he said thoughtfully, "that sword can do more than just block." Chojuro blinked, then straightened. "You're right." A gentle glow of chakra gathered around her Ramkare, swirling like pale blue mist. Slowly, the energy shaped itself into a long, shining blade extending from the sword's edge. It looked almost like a giant carving knife made of soft blue light. Suigetsu let out an impressed whistle. "Nice. You've been practicing." Chojuro smiled shyly. "Mizukage-sama believes I can keep improving." He carefully swung the glowing blade through the air. Suigetsu hopped aside with an easy laugh. Okay. That one definitely has reach." The practice continued for several minutes, both shinobi moving with focus and respect. Eventually Suigetsu raised a hand. "Time out," he said. "You're getting better every time." Chojuro lowered her Ramkare, the chakra fading back into the sword. "Thank you," he replied quietly. Meanwhile, Ao knelt beside what appeared to be an unconscious figure on the forest floor. He carefully checked for movement, his expression thoughtful. Just then, poof! The figure disappeared in a soft cloud of smoke. Ao straightened immediately, activating his Byakugan to scan the clearing. "Looking for someone?" A cheerful voice called from above. Ao glanced up. Perched on a tree branch was Naruko, her bright blonde hair ruffling in the breeze. She held her side with one hand, breathing a little heavily, but she was smiling. "You're tougher than I expected," Ao said, clearly surprised. Naruko rubbed the back of her head. "Hee hee. Yeah. Training can be rough sometimes, she admitted. But I learned something new every time. A faint red chakra shimmered around her as she focused, helping her regain her strength. When she opened her eyes again, they had changed, 3 tomoe slowly spinning within each iris. Ao studied her carefully. Your abilities are impressive, he said. You adapt quickly. Naruko grinned brightly. Well, I've had great teachers. And lots of practice. She hopped down from the branch and landed lightly on the grass. But more importantly, she continued, every challenge helps me grow stronger so I can protect my friends. Ao gave a small nod of respect. That is a very good reason to keep improving. Naruko beamed, her determination shining as brightly as the afternoon sun filtering through the trees. In the quiet forest clearing, the training continued, not as a battle, but as a chance for every shinobi to learn, grow, and become better than they were the day before. Naruko brushed a strand of bright blonde hair from her face and took a steady breath. The forest clearing around her was quiet except for the rustling leaves high above. Across from her stood Ao, a skilled shinobi known for his impressive hand techniques. They had agreed to test their abilities in a friendly challenge, each curious about the other's skills. Are you ready? Ao asked, lowering into a balanced stance. Naruko smiled confidently. Always. The two moved quickly across the clearing, their feet tapping lightly against the soft forest floor. Ao's hands darted forward with incredible speed, each motion precise and practiced. Naruko stepped aside, spun lightly, and lifted her arm to redirect one of his strikes. Though Naruko had been recovering from a difficult mission earlier that week, she remained focused. She was not quite as fast as usual, but her sharp reflexes and careful timing made up for it. She moved like a dancer, gliding from one position to another while keeping her eyes on Ao's hands. Ao paused and blinked in surprise. You're matching my movements, he said. The gentle fist style takes years to master. How did you learn to keep up? Naruko placed her hands on her hips and laughed softly. Taijutsu happens to be my specialty. I practice every day. My teachers say that with enough patience, anyone can grow stronger. Ao nodded thoughtfully. Practice truly does make a difference. He stepped forward again, this time demonstrating a sequence of controlled taps meant to show the rhythm of his technique rather than harm his partner. 1, 2, 4, 8, he counted as his hands moved in quick patterns through the air. Naruko watched carefully, memorizing the pattern. When he finished, she clapped her hands together with excitement. That was amazing, she said. Your control is incredible. Ao chuckled, slightly embarrassed by the compliment. Thank you. But you noticed every step. That's impressive too. At that moment, the ground rustled softly, and several large snakes slithered up from beneath the leaves. They coiled calmly around Ao's arms and legs, not tightly, just enough to hold him in place. Ao blinked again. You summoned them during the demonstration? Naruko grinned. I did. I wanted to see if my timing was right. Don't worry, they're very friendly. The snakes lifted their heads as if agreeing. Naruko stepped forward and gently picked up the large training sword that Ao had set beside a tree earlier. I'll borrow this for a moment, she said. Suigetsu has been looking for it all afternoon. Ao laughed. Go ahead. I suppose that means you win this round. Naruko gave a playful shrug. Maybe. Or maybe we both learned something. She gave a quick signal, and the snakes politely uncoiled and slipped back into the earth. Ao stretched his arms and smiled. Let's practice again sometime, he said. I'd like that, Naruko replied. Not far away, another clearing echoed with loud splashes. Suigetsu was standing in a shallow pool, looking very frustrated while trying to free himself from a swirling sphere of water. Just then, a kunai spun through the air and lightly tapped the surface of the water sphere, causing it to wobble and collapse into harmless ripples. A red-haired kunoichi dropped gracefully from a tree branch above. Hey, she called with a grin. Looks like you could use some help. Suigetsu blinked and then broke into a wide smile. Tuya. Perfect timing. She crossed her arms and looked around the clearing. Where's Naruko? Right on cue, Naruko stepped through the trees carrying a large sword across her shoulder. Suigetsu's eyes sparkled like a child spotting a favorite toy. You found it. Naruko handed the sword over with a laugh. I told you I would. Suigetsu held the blade up proudly while Tuya shook her head with an amused smile. The three friends stood together beneath the tall trees, the afternoon sunlight shining through the leaves as they talked and laughed about their training. It had been a busy day, but for Naruko and her friends, every challenge was another chance to learn, grow, and enjoy the adventure of being shinobi together. Hinata took a slow breath as she looked over her team. A small flutter of nervousness rested in her chest. She had completed many important missions before, but this one felt different. This time she was the leader. Being a leader meant guiding others and making wise choices for everyone. She straightened her posture and reminded herself of something Anko-sensei often said, believe in yourself. If she trusted her training and cared for her teammates, everything would be all right. Hinata. A voice called. Hinata blinked and looked up. Oh, Sakura. Is something wrong? You looked like you were lost in thought, Sakura said kindly. But don't worry. This mission will go smoothly. Hinata nodded slowly. I know. It's just my first mission as a Jonin commander. I want to do a good job for everyone. Before Sakura could answer, another cheerful voice joined in. That's why we're here, Kiba said with a grin. Beside him, Akamaru barked happily and wagged his tail. Hinata smiled and bent down to gently scratch behind Akamaru's ears. You're right. With teammates like you, things will go well. Kiba folded his arms proudly. Exactly. Just then, a puff of smoke appeared nearby, and a tall figure stepped forward. Hello there, the masked ninja said in a relaxed voice. Kakashi-sensei, Sakura exclaimed. I didn't know you were joining us. Hinata bowed her head respectfully. I was told I could choose 3 Chunin for the mission. Kakashi gave a small nod. You did. I'm not here to take charge. I'm simply observing and helping if needed. Think of me as a guide for the journey. Hinata felt relieved. Having Kakashi nearby made the mission feel a little less daunting. Sakura glanced toward the distant mountains. The snow country. It brings back memories. Kakashi gently placed a hand on her shoulder. It's good to remember the past, he said softly, but today is a new adventure. Sakura smiled faintly. You're right. Hinata listened quietly. She knew Sakura was thinking of their old teammate, Naruko. Naruko had always been energetic and bright, the kind of person who filled every moment with excitement. Even on difficult days, she had a way of making everyone smile. Far away, in another forest, Naruko was moving swiftly from branch to branch with 2 companions. A messenger snake had just delivered news about an important task. Naruko paused for a moment on a tall branch, gazing toward the horizon. Snow country. The name stirred old memories. Suigetsu stretched his arms dramatically. Another mission already? Naruko nodded thoughtfully. Yes. It sounds important. Chuya stood nearby, looking curious. Looks like we'll be traveling together for a while. Naruko smiled. Then let's make it a good journey. The 3 companions continued through the forest, the wind rustling through the leaves as they traveled. Suddenly, a mysterious figure appeared quietly on a nearby branch. Suigetsu blinked in surprise. Oh. I didn't see you there. The stranger raised a hand in greeting. Hello, the person said calmly. My name is Madara. I hope to meet you. Naruko studied the newcomer with calm curiosity. She had learned something important over the years. Sometimes the most interesting stories begin with unexpected meetings. She smiled politely. Well, Naruko said, it seems our journey just became more interesting. What? Naruko asked, blinking in surprise. The red-haired ninja girl tilted her head, clearly unsure whether she had heard the masked stranger correctly. It is common courtesy to share your own name after someone introduces himself, the masked man replied calmly. Naruko crossed her arms and studied him carefully. You already know who I am. Yes, the man said with a small nod. Naruko Uzumaki of Konoha. I have heard quite a bit about you. And your traveling companions as well. At that moment, Suigetsu stepped lightly onto the tree branch beside her, grinning. Sounds like someone has been doing a lot of reading. Chuya landed nearby as well, brushing a strand of hair away from her face. Still, there's no way you're really the famous Madara you claim to be. That would make you incredibly old. The masked man chuckled softly, as if the idea amused him. So you're saying you're immortal? Suigetsu asked with playful disbelief. I suppose you could say that, the stranger replied. Naruko narrowed her eyes, though curiosity shone through more than anger. Back at the academy, we learned stories about someone named Madara who lived long ago. He was supposed to have disappeared after a great battle with the first Hokage. Ah, Hashirama, the man said thoughtfully, as if remembering an old friend. Yes, I knew him. Those were very different times. Chuya folded her arms. This conversation is getting stranger by the minute. I understand why you might doubt me, the masked man continued gently. But I am not here to cause trouble. I only came to talk. Naruko raised an eyebrow. Just talk? That's unusual. It may seem that way, he admitted. But sometimes sharing knowledge is more useful than anything else. Suigetsu leaned against the tree trunk. All right then. What exactly did you come to tell Naruko? The man pointed toward Naruko. The message is mainly for her. Naruko straightened a little. For me? Yes. There is someone searching for you. A skilled ninja named Itachi. Naruko thought for a moment. I've heard that name before. Itachi once had a younger brother named Sasuke, the man explained. The two cared deeply for one another. Recently, many confusing rumors have spread about what happened to Sasuke. Because of those rumors, Itachi believes Naruko might know something important. Naruko blinked. But I've never even met Sasuke. That is exactly why I wanted to speak with you, the masked man said. Misunderstandings can lead people down the wrong path. I believe Itachi may be searching for answers, and you may cross paths with him someday. Tuya tilted her head thoughtfully. So you're warning us about a misunderstanding? Precisely, the man replied. Suigetsu chuckled. That's actually much more reasonable than what I expected. The masked man reached into his cloak and tossed Naruko a small scroll. Naruko caught it quickly. What's this? A guide, he said. It explains some of Itachi's abilities and the kind of techniques he prefers. If you ever meet him, understanding how he thinks might help you have a better conversation. Naruko unrolled the scroll slightly and scanned the neat writing. You're helping me. Just like that? Knowledge is meant to be shared, the stranger answered simply. Naruko looked up at the sky. The sun was beginning to sink behind the trees, painting the clouds in soft orange light. Oh no, she said suddenly. We were supposed to catch a boat before sunset. Suigetsu groaned. I knew we spent too long talking. Do not worry, the masked man said kindly. I can help you reach the shore quickly. Before any of them could ask how, the air around them shimmered gently, like sunlight reflecting on water. In the next instant, Naruko and her friends felt a light breeze rush past them. The forest faded, and they found themselves standing near the quiet docks just as the last boat prepared to leave. Naruko looked around in amazement. The masked stranger stood a short distance away. Safe travels, Naruko Uzumaki, he said. Remember, not every story you hear is the full truth. Sometimes it takes patience and kindness to understand what really happened. Naruko smiled thoughtfully and tucked the scroll into her bag. Thanks, she said. If I ever meet this Itachi person, maybe we can clear up the misunderstanding. The masked man gave a small nod. And with that, he quietly stepped back into the evening shadows, leaving Naruko and her friends to board the boat as the gentle waves carried them toward their next adventure. Dear viewers, this is all for now. I sincerely hope you enjoyed spending this time with me and found something interesting, entertaining, or meaningful in today's video. Your support means a lot and it truly helps the channel grow. Every like, share, and comment encourages me to continue creating more content for you. If you enjoyed the video, please consider liking it and sharing it with others who might enjoy it as well. And if you're new here, don't forget to subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications so you don't miss any future uploads. There's a lot more content coming your way, and I would be glad to have you join this journey. Thank you for taking the time to watch and for supporting the channel. Your presence here is always appreciated. Until the next video, take care and stay tuned. Regards. 6 Path Weeb.